What was that? The Nuggets get absolutely housed by the Knicks in MSG. We will briefly go over that disgrace of a basketball game, and then we'll spend 2 segments talking about the other biggest game, the latest biggest game of the year, as the Nuggets face Joel Embiid in Philadelphia on Saturday in Denver. Hopefully, we'll talk about that on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone, to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, part of your community, part of your lives. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Friday, getting you set for the weekend. Glad that you've chosen to make us part of your day. On today's show, we will talk about whatever that was last night in Madison Square Garden. We will not spend more than a segment breaking down that disgrace. We will spend 2 segments, though, talking about the Philadelphia game on Saturday, and we'll talk about all the permutations of who will and will not play, how the matchups go. I want to spend some time on Christian Braun, who I think has really struggled as of late. I want to talk about kind of, especially in the Philadelphia matchup, how he needs a reset of his approach. Plus, we'll get into some of my concerns with like what the Nuggets really need to do in this one if they want to beat Joel Embiid and the Sixers, if in fact Joel decides to play. My name is Matt Moore. I'm a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Swipa. You can catch him on Twitter and on YouTube at SwipaCam. Make sure to check out his YouTube page for reactions to every Nuggets game. Great content daily, contributor for Mile High Sports, all sorts of stuff with Swipa. Glad to be on here on a Friday. We got to come up with a name for you and I show. If Adam and I are world's finest, we got to come up with some sort of name for you and I's. Which
we're not gonna take the Jaylen Brown, Christopher Niggas cookies and cream.
And I'm dead. Do that. That's a choice. I don't know that I work well as I don't know if I'm just sweet enough to be cream. Let's just move on. Let's talk about this Knicks, and let's try and move on from this Knicks game because good Lord. I will tell you, like, okay, we can talk about the X's and O's and like the breakdowns, and like Knicks fans, and this is the same case, right? When a team comes into Denver and they're tired on the end of a West Coast road trip and they get into altitude and the Nuggets jump up and down on their heads for 2.5 hours, you as fans are going to be like, yeah, but like we did that. Like we did the good things. Like we played well. And the Knicks did. And like Knicks fans should absolutely feel like they played great versus the world champs. I think that's a pretty good matchup for them. OG was a beast. Julius Randle played well. Like Jalen Brunson's a problem getting perimeter penetration. It was a phenomenal performance by New York. Like 3-pointing, physicality, up and down the whole way. However, when Jamal Murray is a -29 and Jokic is a -23 and MPJ is a -29 and this team gets beat by 30, like, you know that something weird is up here. And for me, honestly, my take is more, I'll just say this. I know they're tired. I've looked at the numbers. If you're at the end of a road trip where you've faced the other conference, and this is your last one before you come home, the home team, I've looked at the numbers since 2003, the home team wins 73% of the time. Like, they just win these games. I just will say this. Michael Malone's from New York. Okay? Grew up in New York. You ask him about his memories. I ask him about every year. I ask him about his memories of Christmas in the NBA. And he talks about going to Madison Square Garden with his dad, who passed away this fall. And so for the Nuggets to no-show like this, to play like this in Malone's home, like, I felt a little bit for Malone. Like, little disappointed. The 2 most pissed off people in that building last night, usually, like, when the Nuggets play like this, it's just Michael Malone. It was Michael Malone and Nikola Jokic. I felt like Joker was pissed last night, the whole team, and their entire performance. What was your reaction to watching how the Nuggets played sloppy, careless basketball on both ends of the floor?
I mean, when they were down 5-18 at one point, I kind of got the idea that, okay, at least the first quarter, I talked about a similar thing yesterday. When you're on the end of a road trip like that, is you need that last game that kind of gets you. And I think the Nuggets had played so well. I mean, they lost to the 76ers, but it was a hard-fought game. They lost by 5 in Philly. And then they also played against Boston, beat Boston at home. They whopped the Pacers, and they ended up beating the Wizards as well. And the Nuggets came out yesterday like they were playing versus the Pacers or versus the Wizards. They felt like they could just kind of get into the system and get into their own motion and get it done. And it was a negative from the onset. I mean, Jamal Murray drilling into traffic, getting his shot blocked at the rim, Michael Porter Jr. being very passive, Aaron Gordon wasn't converting finishes right next to the rim. Honestly, yesterday, everybody but Nikola Jokic basically shot the worst they have almost all season. Every non-Jokic player for the Nuggets yesterday shot 31.8%. 31.8%. And
hang on, I need to check. Hang on, I'm checking this out using a stats website. That's bad. That's what the stats say, that's bad.
It was terrible. And if you look at the numbers, the Nuggets had an 82.8 half-court offensive rating yesterday. They're one of the best half-court offenses in the league. That's just inexcusable. The Nuggets, they weren't converting at the rim. Their three-pointers weren't going down. They were bad from mid-range yesterday. Everything you could have thought of, and they were turning the ball over like it was a January road game. And I think yesterday, for me, was just more so they were obviously kind of after their wits in and being on the road. The New York Knicks came out like this was a playoff game. And if you listen to their announcers, I think that's the thing about the Nuggets now, too. They're the NBA champions. So every time they play someone, they're going to get the best look possible. And that's exactly what the Knicks did. I think the Knicks, they've had OG for, 13 games? I think they're 11-2 or 10-3 over that span. I mean, they're kicking butt. OG's been incredible, been slotted rightly instead of being a secondary option creator or anything like that. He's now, the third best player on the roster, basically. And I think they were playing with a level of intensity and physicality yesterday the Nuggets just weren't ready for because they just weren't going to get up for that game. So for me, I think that's just a throwaway game. Once I saw Julius Randle, hitting 3-point shots, I kind of was like, all right, cool, call it a day or whatever. They were doing everything. I mean, literally yesterday, they shot 39% from 3, 53% from the field, 85% from the line. And the Nuggets, again, 40% and 19% from 3. And this is with Joker's number included. Nobody showed up. And to your point about Joker being upset, there was a pass that he threw across the court in the left wing when nobody was moving. I think it was to Porter. And he just threw it to OG, just threw it to him almost to make a point. And then Porter had that baseline cut.
Yeah, where he whipped it. Yeah. When he whipped that pass, I was like, oh, no, Joker mad.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, Joker dominated yesterday, but nobody came to the party.
I also want, Robert Darte's in here talking about, Malone could have tried lineups with guys that care. Okay, first off, you don't pull the we're gonna bench all the starters. You don't do that with the championship team. You just not something that you do. Not when the team has established itself this much. You do that in previous seasons when you're building championship habits. He's done that routinely. He did not do that here. They are not at that point in their span here. That is not where the Nuggets are at. Second, who do you want them to put in? Christian Braun, who was minus 10 in 14 minutes yesterday. The effort guys were not doing it either. The bench was out of sync too. The bench is bad again on the road, like we talked about the other day. So there was not a find some guys lineup. Nobody was logged in. People mentioned the turnover in the first play from Jamal. It was a night where you could just tell very early on. I watched 5 minutes. I watched the whole game, but the first 5 minutes I was watching with my wife, and I was like, oh, there's no chance in this game. And she was like, what do you mean? They've been down before. And I was like, this is one of those games where everything that can go wrong does. MPJ made a hustle play where he makes a really great play to go out of bounds and try and save it. It goes right to a Nick and winds up with an open corner 3. Yeah. Every bounce that can go against you does. Every bounce that for you does not go that way. It was just one of those games, and that's how it goes. I do think that everybody was really you can just tell this. I think Joker's reaction with some of these sequences too is very much everybody just needs to get off this road trip. Been on the road a while, need to get home, need to see family. I expect them to be much better when they bounce back.
Well, look, and I felt the same. As soon as Joker got poked in the eye by Dante DiVincenzo, I said, all right, just go ahead and pack it up. Because the last thing we need is him dealing with some eye injury for the next month or whatever else it is. So, again, man, the Knicks, they are trying to cement themselves. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to cement themselves in the East.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at a comment. Sorry, go ahead.
No. You're good. You're good. Yeah. They're trying to cement themselves in the Eastern Conference, and they're in a situation right now where They're fighting with the Cleveland Cavaliers for that 4th, 5th seed. They might even try to get up to the 3 seed because they're only 3 games behind as of yesterday before the game, the 76ers. And Jalen Brunson's making an all-NBA push as well. So they have a lot riding on the season for them. And the difference is Denver, I just don't think they care about playing the Knicks that much. So not only were they on the last game of a 5-game road stand, I think too, like for them, it just is what it is. Like it was a bad game. Nobody could get anything going but Nikola Jokic. And even now, Peyton Watson had a great defensive play at the rim where he blocked OG. Matt, that was incredible. He continues to show his stuff a little bit. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I won't even think about this game from Saturday.
Robert Arte asked me in the chat is if Malone has earned the right to coach as tough as he talks. Well, he won a championship, Robert. So probably, yeah, he's going to get the right to do pretty much whatever he thinks
with 16 and 4 as well.
As a coach. On the other side, we'll put that one behind us and we'll talk about the matchup with the Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to start with a discussion of Christian Braun because I do think he's important on Saturday because of who he's going to be guarding, how he's going to be guarding, and what he needs, I think, in order to reset this season for Christian Braun. We'll talk about that up next on Locked On Nuggets. Our partners, the eBay Motors, have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Let's talk about Brandon Miller. Miller should be seeing a big uptick in usage with Terry Rozier shipped out, and that makes him a must roster play in fantasy. He was really great the other night. Hit a really big shot. He's going to be really stable for you. If you're on a fantasy squad where you're trying to find guys that are a little bit more consistent, he's a rookie, but honestly, Brandon Miller has been pretty consistent in how he contributes every game, and he's going to add a little bit in a bunch of categories. So if you're looking for versatility, I think he's a pretty good look there. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. It's the same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day here with you on a Friday. Glad to have you with us. Oh, by the way, we are available on all platforms. If you got a second, go get us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Like if you're listening to us on the podcast form, take a second, pop up on the Apple app, give us a 5-star review. You have no idea how much those things help us. Helps us give a bigger audience. It's really helpful. Also, check us out on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets, and you can join the show live with folks like Robert. And 5-ish, who's always in here. Lots of folks hanging out. I was a little bit early today, so I answered some questions with them. All right, so let's talk about Christian Braun. I had some time before the show today, and so I decided to go back and I watched all of Philadelphia's possessions from that last game as they faced them on Saturday. We'll talk about some of the dynamics of that. Plus, heads up, Joel tweaked his knee last night. Dun 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 dun. So we'll see if he's going to play. But one of the things that was really big is Tobias Harris lit up Christian Braun. He lit up Christian Braun. And when you go back and you watch, you kind of notice that Christian doesn't hit first in that game. And I think that this is a real thing that's a difference between last year and this year. Last year, he was a rookie and he's fighting for his minutes and he's really amped up and he's playing at a high level. And part of the thing that honestly, this is like veterans try and like tell young guys to do this, which is once you make it into the rotation, then you got to pace yourself. Like that's what's tough is you got to learn how to play at a high level without burning yourself. And I do feel a lot like this season, starting with the ankle injury in preseason, Christian's kind of paced himself. I think he just hasn't been able to get the higher gear. This is a game, and especially I think the stretch coming up, where if he wants to make sure that he's in the playoff rotation, because I'll be honest right now, somebody asked me about like if they go to a 7-man, who's in, who's out. I was like, there's no question it's Peyton. Like there's zero question it's Peyton Watson. And so like CB could be out of the rotation, and you don't want that. So like to me, CB's got to hit first in terms of being into guys defensively, being the dog that he was last year, being the guy that is out ahead of everybody else in transition, that is making plays. A lot of this is the scouting report is out on him, which is just like, hey, pack the paint, put your arms up. He's probably going to jump into you and not have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So like he needs to work on that stuff long term. But until like that's a long term plan for Christian Braun. Right now, he's got to be the guy that is making the plays by being there first, being there early on rotations, being there like up under guys' shirts when they're handling the ball. He's got to be more physical. Now, in this matchup, Swipa, I don't know that Tobias Harris is the best matchup for him. Like, I honestly think they might want, I know that they want to put Peyton on Maxey, and I get that. I honestly might swap it because I think Christian has a really hard time with big, powerful forwards like Tobias Harris. And while Peyton is not big yet, he will be in a couple of years. I think that might be a better look for him because I do not know that Christian has the physicality to hang with professional scorer Tobias Harris in the non-Embiid minutes.
Yeah, I think Tobias Harris, I think what he was 8 of 10 from the field last game. So, hey, if he does that again, because he's making contested jump shots over Christian Braun last game as well. So some of this is, I think for Christian, he had the 54.3 true shooting this year. That's like, I think that's a minus 3.8 in terms of relative true shooting around the league, which is 58.1, I believe. His three-pointer's gone up, but he's not as effective as from two. The drives haven't been nearly as successful as they were last year. And Peyton also, I think, or Christian defensively, I think some of this is, Matt, I think that he's just overthinking basketball. I think because of no Bruce Brown, Peyton Watson has taken this incredible leap. And I think because of just his sophomore season, he is just overthinking stuff. He will get the ball and just, instead of just taking a wide open three-pointer, he'll think to do that little jab step, drive into nowhere. Or he'll do a jab step back behind the screen, and then shoot it. Instead of just getting the ball, confidently going up and delivering it. And I think some of this with defense, I think Christian has just, it's the PJ Washington matchup early this year, the Tobias Harris matchup from a couple of weeks ago. And there have been a couple other matchups in there that when he gets on bigger wing players this regular season, he just hasn't been as stout in his mechanics. So I do think, though, that as the year goes along and as he gets into the playoff, I do expect him to be better. Just because I think he's going to have a lot more simplified expectation of him. You got to get in there, you got to lock in on D, and then you got to hit three-pointers and get to the rim when you're in transition. But right now, it has felt like he is trying to force different parts of his game that just are not coming together right now. And I think not having Bruce Brown has exposed him a bit to the winds and to the waves. But again, based on how they're going to project, I do think that he'll be okay. Hopefully come playoff time. But I think it was clear. I think Peyton Watson has completely taken not his spot in rotation. He's taking Bruce Brown's spot in rotation. I think that Peyton Watson is just more integral to the success than Christian Braun is.
Yeah. And I'll say this. The offensive stuff can slide if he's still able to be a menace. But he was a menace last year. Not a good defender, a menace. Like, it was like he made play after play after play. He's got to be able to do that. Now, again, I also kind of wonder about how much of this is like you get more banged up as you play more games. And like he's playing more consistently, so he's a little bit more tired. And then on top of it, like there's a scouting report on him. Like they're going to know him as a defender, that he's a little bit more physical, and they're going to like, there's not a lot of sequences where guys are necessarily attacking him straight on. It's usually catch, like he's having to rotate, catch, and then recover. But these are all things that I think it's important for him to be able to do. I do think that the bench is going to be big in this game. I talked about that the other day on the show about how they're great at home and terrible on the road. They were not good in that game on the road. Christian was a +3, so he gets credit there. Reggie was a +4, but a lot of that was in Joker minutes, right? Somebody asked before the game about this game. Do you think this is a DJ game? Do you think it's a Zeke game, or do you think it's an AG at the 5 game?
Well, depending on how they treat this, Malone might be a little pissed off after losing by 38 points to the Knicks. And if he's pissed off, AG is going to play center. But if it's just a regular game, then I think DJ probably just sees those center minutes. Zeke played last year in Philly when they did play in Philly when they played versus Embiid. Did as good of a job as you would expect, which means not great. But some of this is like, I think Nurse is he did it last game. They're gonna match minutes mostly with Jokic and Embiid for the most part. So I don't really foresee a lot of opportunities there. I think Paul Reed is a hustler. Paul Reed is a rebounder. Paul Reed will give them issues on the offensive glass. So I think whoever, Zeke or DJ, whoever they play, they're going to have to make sure they're securing and ending possessions. That way the Nuggets can get as many possessions in their favor as possible.
I actually like Zeke in this matchup. I think that he's better versus Marcus Morris. I think he can match with Paul Reed. I like the one thing he's done well this year is offensive rebound. Like he's attacked the glass as much as possible. Defensive side is a little bit harder because of how much they switch. But like Zeke's played hard. He just hasn't played well. Like that's been kind of the problem. And so that to me is why I actually think that this could be a game where he could excel, but I don't know if Mullen trusts him. And so even though I like the matchup theoretically, this may just feel like, no, this is too important and too big a game. We're not going to do this. All right, up next, we'll talk more about the Philly matchup. I want to ask Swipa if he thinks Joel Embiid's going to play in this game. We'll talk about some more of the matchups, the keys, if they're going to even the season series and split with the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Nuggets. Right now, I got to tell you about one of my absolute favorite apps, and that is Grammarly. You know, when it comes to writing, Grammarly is there to support you from start to finish. Now, look, like I'm a writer. That's what I do every single day. Everybody in life has to write sometimes, whether you're writing an email, not just if it's for work, if you're having to like write an email to your boss to explain why you need a raise, write an email if you're involved in a legal situation, write an email if you're trying to get something that you need, or if you're dealing with a family situation. Knowing how to write clearly and concisely is really important, and Grammarly is amazing to do that. For over 10 years, Grammarly has been powered by AI technology you can trust to help you across all places where you write the most. And now Grammarly helps you do even more. With one click, you can easily brainstorm, rewrite, and reply with suggestions based on your context and goals, so you can improve productivity for you and your teams. One of the best things about Grammarly is they have tonal guides. So what I mean by that is like, if you want to write informal so that you're trying to write to a friend, it'll help you there. If you're trying to like write an email to express that you've got some sort of issue, or if you're dealing with a legal situation and you want it to sound professional, you will be shocked at how much it will upgrade you and how much more positive it will seem. I ran a friend that was working on his cover letter, and I was giving him some help on it. I was like, look, just run it through Grammarly and look at what it looks like after. Because he was kind of like, it doesn't really matter. And I was like, just look at it. And he looked at it and he was like, this is so much better. When you're stuck with writing at work, Grammarly can help you get started with ideas, outlines, and even tips. And if you need to polish, Grammarly can help you paraphrase and rewrite to be more concise. Concise is a very big thing. I got a comma problem. I have a lot of parentheticals in my writing, a lot of clauses. Grammarly is great for helping me break those up and make it really clean. If you got a big presentation coming up, let Grammarly create a personalized outline to get you organized so you can transform your ideas into a compelling presentation. Or if you need to draft an important email and don't know where to start, Grammarly has suggestions to jumpstart your rating. The best part is that's free to use. Start being more productive at work. Go to Grammarly.com/podcast to download for free today. That's Grammarly, GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Let's talk about the Sixers game. First up, Swipa, I got to ask you, Joel Embiid tweaked that knee yesterday in the loss to the Pacers. Do you think he's going to play?
I think he has to play. He's played 12 less games than Joker so far this year, and he is currently not pacing to play over 65 games. And I will say this, I'm actually concerned about him a little bit. Matt, this is his second knee injury. The second time he's hurt this knee already since he started the season off, and he's already only played 33 games this year. So some of this is, I think for the smoke, you can't avoid that, but there's no excuse. And I'm there's some Philly writers that were, they're already prepping for the narrative that if he misses tomorrow's game, that he's ducking and all that other stuff. But it's like, well, why did he play the rest of the game versus the Pacers if he's injured? That doesn't make any sense to me. Because he didn't even keep his record going. He got 7 rebounds. So here's the thing, like he has to play. Like there's just no world where he cannot play. Because at the end of the day, like you haven't played in Denver since the 2018-19 season. That's a thing. And I know, and it's known he doesn't like playing in Denver. But I'm saying that's cool. But if the Philadelphia 76ers are going to do what a lot of people are thinking they're going to do, they're going to make it to the NBA Finals, well, then more than likely, you're going to have to come to Denver to play. So I think that he does play because I think he has to play. And if you played all game yesterday, Matt, I expect you to show up to work the next day.
I don't think he plays. I think he's in so much control of the narrative where the people that like him because he scores 70 versus Victor and Zach Collins aren't going to care that he misses this game. Like, a really great scenario for him is to play 64 games, not be eligible, and everyone be like, Embiid should have won it. And like, Joker played 15 more, 12 more games. And people be like, no, but that's Joker only won it because Embiid wasn't eligible. It's perfect. He doesn't have to play any tough games. He doesn't have to do anything difficult on the road. He only gets to look good at home. Like, that to me is like a really good situation. And let's give him, let's treat that knee thing, because like it did look not good. The swelling can go up, and like that's perfectly reasonable to miss a game in altitude on the road versus a non-conference opponent. If Jokic had an injury and they were facing Boston, I would be like, no, they should rest him. Like, it's a non-con. It's a non-con versus a very tough team. You're not likely to win this game anyway. He's already won it. So, like, we'll see. I think it's a tough matchup if he plays. I still think it's a tough matchup. Like, they match up very well with Denver right now. I'll see what they do at the deadline. They match up very well with Denver right now. I want to talk a little bit about the three-point balance. So in the first game, the Nuggets shot 12 of 29 from three-point range. The Sixers shot 15 of 31. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of been on this thing about the three-point stuff. That's not a huge balance, right? Like, that's a couple of shots here or there. But what I will say is Denver doesn't have to take more than the opponent. The flip of that is to say you have to keep them from shooting more than you. You can take 12 of 29, but you need to be holding them to 28 shots. Like, you need to try and have it to be where you've attempted more threes than they have. And if they make more, they make more. That's make or miss. But like, Embiid was 3 of 6 in that game. And some of that was just like, I'll say this, the Nuggets and Adam did a really good job on DMVR breaking down all the ways of the Nuggets, and you did this too, about like how perplexing it was how they guarded that entire game. Like, some of their sequences were just baffling, but also, like, to circle down on it, their DHO stuff was just pathetic. Like, they were just literally like, they had no communication on some of these sequences about how to manage it. And they need to be aware Nurse is going to run them through those paces. They're going to try and get DHO action consistently to generate threes. And Denver's got to be really spaced at the exterior in order to do that. Like, you kind of want to make them score inside. Like, that's what you want to do. They're a jump shooting team for the most part. Like, try and make them score on the interior where you can recover. They're not outside of Maxey. They're not super fast. But what are your thoughts on the 3-point balance and how they need to approach this game from that perspective?
Well, so the 76ers on the year, they're 27th in shot distribution from three-pointer on the season. They're 15th in three-point shooting. This is from dunks and threes. The Nuggets are, they're better across the board. The Nuggets are actually attacking the rim at a very high level this year. They're third in attempt. They're just not converting super well right now there. The Nuggets are also, this year, they're 6th in overall efficiency. So, I mean, they're honestly, like, in many spots, like a better offense. I think the issue is that they were running some of the most unrecognizable schemes in that first half versus the 76ers when they were like, just even when they had Aaron Gordon stunting off of Tyrese Maxey at the top of the key because Embiid was somehow at the nail versus like whoever, and it just didn't make any sense. And I think some of this is if they just play their basic defense, let them have the short roll. Let Embiid have the short roll. Let them have that pop. That's cool. That's fine. The issue is if you start letting Maxey and Batum and Patrick Beverly and all these other dudes just get off because you're playing this crazy scheme, just play at the level. If Embiid rolls, switch it. He's going to shoot a jump shot anyway.
Yep.
Like, he's not taking a lot of shots at the rim. So let him get them to the nail. Let him shoot that jumper. And then, hit the shot. That's fine. And I think the thing is that the Nuggets, they were getting whatever they wanted offensively as well. But the problem is that the game was so high tempo, and the Nuggets don't do well in the regular season right now with high tempo basketball. that they couldn't even settle the game down. Whenever they got a chance to get a stop, they were cooking. But some of this is Joker, I think, has to be more selectively aggressive as well, because they're not going to give you that lob if Embiid is going to play off for help, and he's going to be guarding Aaron Gordon. So, Joker just take that little 6-foot, 10-foot shot and just punish him every single time there. And I think Joker hit some of those three-pointers to start the game off, pull the defense out a little bit. Jamal Murray, you heard what Patrick Beverly said about him, so I'm sure Jamal can be really juiced for this matchup. I think the Nuggets, here's the thing. If the Embiid played, even if they played, man, I think the Nuggets are going to be so pissed off about this Knicks game and the fact that they lost in Philly already. I think they're going to come out like all cylinders firing. So, we'll see how they end up defending them. But for me, I would just play your normal defense and just call it a day. If Embiid his shot, he his shots.
I don't think they need to start with Murray on Maxey again. I think it's tough. Jamal is a better defender than he gets credit for, but he was really rough in that game. And honestly, he's just not moving very fast right now. And so one of the problems is if he can't guard Maxey on ball because Maxey's speed, then you move him off ball and maybe guard him, put him on Batum. But the problem there is he's got to be ready to make real extreme closeouts. He's got to be ready to challenge. He has to sprint to recover on those shots. And I don't think that he was in that game. So and again, that's a difference in home versus away. But I think that to me is one to kind of watch out for as far as how that goes. Now we'll say when Murray was on Batum only scored 3 points, but in the 240, wow, that's insane. In the 246 that Murray guarded Batum for primary time and then 12 minutes of partial, the Sixers scored 24 points via the matchup data. They cooked in those stretches. This is a hard one for them to find the matchups for, which again, to me is why the staggered rotations are going to be so important. You need Christian to play well in this game. You need Peyton Watson to play great in this game. He's been playing great every game, but you need him to play well. You need Reggie, who's been really good at home. You need him to play well in this game. So they're going to have to do that. It was when you look back, Embiid was a plus minus of 0. They didn't win his minutes despite the 40. He wasn't. He was a plus. They played even in his minutes. They were +1 in jokers. You've got to limit the damage in the non-joker minutes, which they do better at home. And you've got to be able to find ways, I think, to slow them down. You got anything else in this matchup you want to hit before we get out of here?
No, that's all. So hopefully, everybody plays and we get a really, really great matchup on Saturday.
All right. We will talk to you guys on Sunday. World's Finest with me and Adam. We'll recap the Sixers game. Break out what it means, what we saw, etc. Get you set for the week as the Nuggets then transition. They'll face the Bucks on Monday, and then they're off to OKC for another pivotal matchup that could have huge implications for playoff seeding. We'll have more here. Make sure to hit us up on YouTube, youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Follow Swipa on Twitter and on YouTube @SwipaCam. We'll see you guys again on Sunday. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Nuggets.